Welcome back, everybody. We are on page 131, continuing in Module 1, Topic 3, Lesson 2. We are in Activity 2. Solving decimal addition and subtraction problems. Our habits of mind, we need to be reasoning abstractly and quantitatively. So we're going to think about, in number sense, what do our numbers need to do? Construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. So the first thing I want to do before we do any calculations is read each question and just determine, are we going to be adding or subtracting? In question 1, it says Amy finished the first leg of her race in 87 and 924 thousandths seconds and the second half in 79 and 6 hundredths seconds. How long did it take her to complete the entire race? So we have two numbers, and then they want us, so this was one race, the second race, and then they want to know how much it was for both. So this will be an addition problem. Number 2, Chris completed a 100-meter breaststroke swimming race in 92 and 542 thousandths seconds. Michael completed the 100-meter breaststroke swimming race in 95 and 6/10 seconds. How much faster is Chris's time than Michael's? So in this one, we're trying to see whose is faster. So we really want to know what the difference is between them because it wants to know how much faster. So if we're figuring out the difference, then that is a subtraction problem. Number 3, it is 639 and 18 hundredths miles from Atlanta to Washington, D.C., and 881 and 4/10 miles from Atlanta to New York City going through Washington, D.C. How much farther is Atlanta to New York City than it is from Atlanta to Washington, D.C.? Now, when you first read this, you're probably like, I have no idea what all of that just said, which is fine. So what do you need to do to help yourself figure that out? Well, I like to kind of sketch that out. Let me draw myself a little picture. So it says it is 639 miles from Atlanta to Washington, D.C. And Atlanta to New York City is 639 going through Washington. So if I have Atlanta, so that's in Georgia, that's more southern. You guys should know this from your social studies so far this year. To Washington, D.C. is north of that. I'm just going to put D.C. And that distance is from there to there, 639 and 18 hundredths miles. And 881 and 4/10 miles from Atlanta to New York City going through Washington, D.C. So New York City is kind of further north here, going here, but it's not just from here to here. It's actually from Atlanta all the way to New York City. From here all the way up going through DC. How much farther is Atlanta from New York City than it is from Atlanta to Washington, D.C.? So this distance here is 881 and 4/10. So if we're figuring out how much further something is, we're going to be setting up a subtraction problem. Part B. If a bus goes from Atlanta to Washington, D.C., then travels on to New York City, and finally returns to Atlanta, how many miles has it traveled? So from Atlanta to D.C., then to New York City, and then back. So it looks like we're just adding mileage, so that's going to be an addition problem. Number 4, Kara is flying to Hawaii. If her packed suitcase weighs more than 50 pounds when she checks in at the airport, she'll have to pay a fee. That's true. That happens, guys. Her empty suitcase weighs 11 and 3/10 pounds, and she has to pack all her camera equipment, which weighs 14 and 25 hundredths pounds. To stay under the weight limit, what is the maximum possible weight of her other packed items? Oh, so I think we're going to have to do a couple of steps here, right? So we have her suitcase, like, so this is her suitcase right here. Oh, you can't see that. If that's her suitcase, okay, suitcase. And I draw a great suitcase. Her suitcase weighs 11 3/10 pounds. And then she's going to put her camera in it. Her camera equipment will go in that as well. That is an additional 14 2500. That's her camera. Great little camera. And then it says to stay under the weight limit, what is the maximum possible weight of her other items? So she'll have other items. So whatever their weight is, will go here. So how do we figure out what that is? So I think we're going to have a couple of things going on here. First of all, we need to know what her total weight is now. So that's going to be an addition problem. And then it says, what's the maximum possible weight of the others? So we know it can go up to 50. We'll find out here how much she has, and then we'll have to do a subtraction to figure out the difference. Okay. All right, let's hop back up here to question 1. Amy finished the first leg of her race in 87 924 seconds, and the second half in 79 600. How long did it take her to complete? If it's an addition, we're just going to line up our decimals and add it. Make sure you put that trailing 0 in. We have 4, 8, 9, 16, and 16. So 166 984 seconds. All right, Chris's time was 92 542 Michael was 95 6/10. How much faster was Chris than Michael? Okay, so they're saying this time is the faster. And it is. So they both have a 9, but then this one has a 2 in the ones place, and this has a 5. So when we're talking about races, we want the lower number is the winner, right? The one who is doing better. So we're going to subtract these two. So we have 95 6/10 minus 92 and 542 thousandths. So that's about 96. That's about 97. So our answer should be somewhere around, I'm sorry, not 97, 93. And when we subtract those, our answer should be somewhere around 3. Put the zeros in and then subtract. You can't do 0 minus 2. Please do not write 2 minus 0 is 2. Do not write 4 minus 0 is 4. That is not what the question is saying. So the rules on the street, this guy can go next door here. He doesn't have anything. So this guy needs to go do some borrowing. He does that. This guy becomes a 10. Now this guy can go here. This 10 becomes a 9. I'm actually going to do this. There's the 10. And now there's the 9. And this 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 4 is 5. 5 minus 5 is 0. Decimal point stays in line. 5 minus 2 is 3. So 3 and 58 thousandths seconds. And our answer is close to our estimate. Okay, number 3A. How much farther is Atlanta to New York City than it is from Atlanta to Washington, D.C.? So Atlanta to D.C. is Atlanta to New York City is this amount, and Atlanta to D.C. is this. I'll put a trailing 0 in there, and then we are going to subtract those. So this is about 881, and this is about 640. So 881 minus 640. Our answer should be about 241. Can't do 0 minus 8. Go over here. The 4 becomes a 3. That's now a 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. 3 minus 1 is 2. Decimal point stays in line. Can't do 1 minus 9. 8 becomes a 7. That 1 becomes an 11. This is one of the only things I don't like about this text is they just don't give us enough room to write. 11 minus 9 is 2. 7 minus 3 is 4. 8 minus 6 is 2. So 242 and 22 hundredths, very close to our estimate. If a bus goes from Atlanta to Washington, D.C., so here to here, then to New York City, and finally returns to Atlanta, how many miles has it traveled? So if it goes, we know from Atlanta to D.C. is this, and Atlanta to New York City is this. So if it goes from Atlanta to D.C., then to New York City, it does this whole total. So Atlanta to D.C. on to New York City is that total 881 and 4/10. And finally returns to Atlanta. So if it turns around and comes back the other way, it's going to be traveling the same distance to get back. So we are just adding that twice. Okay. So 8 decimal point 2, 16. 16 and 1 is 17. So 1,762 and 8/10 miles is our answer. Okay, so let's figure out the suitcase problem. So how much does she have so far? So in her suitcase, she has the camera and the suitcase itself. I'm going to put a trailing 0. So right now, the total weight in her suitcase is 25 and 55 hundredths. She can go up to 50 pounds. If we subtract off what she already has, the remaining number will be the amount she can still put in. Can't do 0 minus 5. Please, please, please do not just go 5 minus 0 is 5. I'm going to get a 5 here, but it's not because I'm doing 5 minus 0. Our rules of regrouping or borrowing, 0. Can't do 0 minus 5. Go next door. Can't borrow anything from here. This guy will go next door. Can't get anything there. This guy goes here. The 5 becomes a 4. This is then a 10. Now this guy can borrow from here, so the 10 becomes a 9, and this becomes the 10. Now this guy can come from here, and that 10 becomes a 9, and this 0 becomes a 10. So 10 minus 5 is 5. But then in the column next to it, in the tenths, 9 minus 5 is 4. Had you just done the upwards subtracting like I see a lot of kids do, you would have put 5, 5, 5, 3. Let's see how it's very different than that. Okay, 9 minus 5 is 4, and 4 minus 2 is 2. So the actual answer is 24 and 45 hundredths, where had you just subtracted going up, you would have gotten that. This is incorrect. You cannot do that. Okay, hope you did well on those, and we'll see you next time.